Hi, everybody. Welcome to Nerd Side Champs. I'm Dan. The handsome man next to me is Tim hyphen subscribe to at Nerd Champs. And that's what you need to do before we even start. Go ahead and subscribe to at Nerd Champs. So
I'm going shameless.
Yeah.
Shameless with the name.
Yeah, and as you all know, we wrapped up our Agriper coverage 2 weeks ago. Last week, Jason filled in for Tim as he traveled, and we went down the whole history of Disney Star Wars. And having completed that travesty, this week, Tim and I decided that we would go back a little farther for all of you that believe that Star Wars was this wonderful, beautiful, untouched flower of a gem that had never been defiled before Disney bought it. Me and Tim have news for you, and we have just confirmed it. We double, triple confirmed it before we watched an Ewok Adventure, Caravan of Courage, this week, and we're going to talk about it. We have
what did I ever do to you, Dan? Like, what did I ever do to you to make me? I mean, I understand there are times when you were my boss, when I gave you a couple of gray hairs here and there, but I ever did anything to deserve this, Dan. This cruel and unusual punishment. But yeah, let's get to these comments.
Yeah, my misery deserves company, Tim. That's what this is all about. Barry Allen is slow. I'd prefer 1,000 projects like this to projects like The Acolyte. Poor execution is one thing, but destroying the universe that fans have come to love for the better part of 5 decades, unforgivable.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is a good point. As I watched it, and as it got worse and worse and worse, I was still able to text him because he had watched it the day before me and say, "What? It's still better than The Acolyte."
we'll get into that, but Dan and I still have that. And yes, I am back, Barry.
Tim is back. Oh, from parts unknown, he has traveled the world.
That's right.
Yeah. It's just another what is it? Heart in need of rescue.
That's right.
Waiting on Love Sweet Charity. So,
all right.
Anyway, here's the thing. I looked it up. This was released November 25th, 1984 on ABC. And I would have been 5 years old. I would have just turned 5 years old that August. So I'm like 2 or 3 months into being 5. And I had fond memories of this. So when, I'm 5. As a 5-year-old, you could have enjoyed it,
It's just the teddy bears running around and
And so Disney put this on Disney Plus April of 2021. I think they were trying to distract us from all the horrible. They're like, hey, see, look, we're not the only ones that can make bad Star Wars. I think that's why it's on Disney Plus, just for evidence that they're not the only ones making bad Star Wars. And I had watched like a few minutes of it, but I hadn't really sat and paid attention until
I know.
So what were your first takeaways, Tim?
Well, I think the one thing that I learned is very simply, first of all, this was, 5-6 years after the holiday special. I want everyone to just keep that in mind, that this was after the holiday special, and this was written, A to Z, unlike the holiday special, by George. Okay. Yeah. So George wrote this entire script. So the one thing,
satisfaction from the holiday special experience, that made sure that this was better.
The one thing that I learned is this: when George has creative control, 100% creative control, things don't go well. And that's kind of the problem. I think that when we look at what happened with the original trilogy, people don't know this, but Fox was very integrally involved in a lot of the decisions that were made between going back and forth with the script and the characters and a lot of that kind of stuff. George really didn't get to flex his creative muscles until the prequel trilogy. Yeah, that's right, the prequel trilogy. And I don't think that people really realize that when George kind of is unbridled, he kind of does things that he doesn't have anyone to really check him. And that's kind of what this kind of was. This was kind of one of those situations. It's like, once again, all right, making the same mistake that he made in the holiday special, he decided to focus on a species of characters that does not speak any discernible language and basically is miming the entire movie. And so, they're miming the entire movie. There are essentially two characters that do speak, and those two characters that do speak basically kind of try to interpret, what they're saying time to time, but not directly. And so it's a very weird thing to do, to pick characters that don't speak English, essentially, as your main focus. And he did that in the holiday special. It was one of the things that went terribly awry in the holiday special. There was a variety of things that went awry in the holiday special that we don't have time to get into right here. But one of the key problems is that they focused on the Wookiees, and the Wookiees don't speak. And that's kind of what they did here. They focused on the Ewoks. The Ewoks don't speak. But then there's so many other things. They obviously did not give George the budget to do something Star Wars. And I think that is the biggest problem. When George saw the budget for this, he should have decided right away, I can't do this properly. Don't worry about it. But instead of that, he decided to go ahead and just kind of say, well, let's just work with what we have. Let's just do these hand-painted backgrounds that look like they're from a high school play. And let's just go ahead and use the spiders that look like they were from Big Lots. I think I said that. And then basically the costumes did not look great. The sets did not look great. The storyline was very, very simple. I felt like everything here was not the quality of Star Wars. And as soon as George saw that, he should have just pulled the reins out on it and said, nope, we're not doing this. And he released it, and it's out there, and that's something that, and now it's on Disney Plus. If you have Disney Plus, you can watch The Caravan of Courage. It's just one of those things. I don't know that it was, but you look at it. I mean, they still got Warwick Davis coming back and doing Wicket, and they still have all the same costumes and all the same things. So it was one of those things that I understand what George was trying to do.
I don't know if you know this, but this was actually given a theatrical release internationally.
I did not know that. I did not know that.
It was a TV movie here in the States, but overseas, this was a theatrical release.
Can you imagine? I mean, can you imagine being in like Australia or something stupid and being like, let's go watch the new Star Wars, mate? And you just go in and you watch this.
Yeah, it was a little over a year since Return of the Jedi. The Return of the Jedi
exactly.
Is let's see, that's May of '83 is Return of the Jedi, and this is on TV in November of '84. So we've got
a year and a half, right?
Year and a half. And so you've just been to the theater a year and a half ago and watched Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, had your socks blown off, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you just
some of the best battles that in the whole original trilogy. Some of the best effects that we had, and you just had that, and I go, hey, let's see the new Star Wars.
That's what everyone was thinking, right? They had to be thinking, oh, well, the new Star Wars is out in theaters. Let's go see the new Star Wars. I mean, that's atrocious, man. I don't know what they would think. So
now, and here, at least at home, people had lower expectations for television in the early '80s than we do now. So I think you would have known it wasn't going to be on that level. But if you're in Europe and it's the new Star Wars and you got to buy a ticket to go see it, I mean.
Yeah, that's ridiculous, man. I mean, and that's the thing. Like, I think one more thing, all right? From the 1960s to the 1980s, is there anybody else that did TV special narration except for Burl Ives? Is there anybody that did it? I have to know. He must have been the only person available that was like, oh, I'll do the TV narration. Like, he must have been the only one, right?
Burl Ives was the man to call.
Burl Ives is your TV special narrator. He must be the narrator of your TV special. He must be.
I kept waiting. I was waiting for Rudolph.
I know. Everybody, or you were waiting for a song, right?
Or the Grinch. I want to hear about the Grinch. It felt very Christmassy.
It did.
This
It
was
did.
released in late November, so it's November again. So I got kind of in the spirit. I'm easing into my Christmas special rewatch by listening to Burl Ives. They knew people didn't want to read on TV screens, so instead of a crawl, you open with some Burl Ives narration.
I know.
And hey, there was no narration, no subtitles, no nothing in the Christmas special.
Yeah.
So they're like, you know what we'll do?
Yeah. Well, and I think that was George's workaround, okay, to try to say, well, I'm going to give him a narrator that'll kind of explain everything, and he'll explain who they are and what they're doing and all this kind of stuff. It still fell flat and didn't land for me. Yeah. Still felt like they were just miming 90% of the time. And it was not, it didn't work the way that I think George thought it would.
And so it was just, so for those who aren't familiar, we open on the forest moon of Endor, and it's nice. It's
a clearly hand-drawn moon, you know, if you look at it. It's
Burl Ives is talking to us, and we pan down to husband and wife desperately searching through the forest for their missing children. And God, this is the worst acting. The dad is kind of pulling off like some standard issue sitcom dad performance. It wasn't, but the wife, the mom, this was like the most truly awful. I'm reading this off a cue card, exposition giving, but it doesn't sound conversational. She's supposed to be frantic.
Her kids are missing. Her kids are missing. Okay, her kids are missing, and I honestly can say Amanda Lestenberg would have nailed that role, but that's how terrible it was. I agree with you, Dan. It was bad.
For all that we've been talking about the Ewoks nuts, they gave the best performances in this whole thing.
No, you're right.
So the parents are desperately trying to find the kids, and then Sweetums from the Muppets.
I was gonna say it looked just like Sweetums. I was gonna say that. He just lurches around like Sweetums from the Muppets, the main monster. The main monster of the whole thing looks just like Sweetums from the Muppets.
Yeah. So Sweetums, we didn't know this, but Sweetums is actually from Endor. The forest moon of Endor. That is the original home of Sweetums. And Sweetums takes parents hostage.
It's in my notes. I honestly can't believe that you said that, because that is just the first thing that came to my mind. Is it looks like Sweetums from the Muppets. It totally just clicked like that. That was so funny.
And then we get about 10-15 minutes of Wicket and the Ewoks just doing Ewok stuff. And Burl
the hand gliding. We get hand gliding.
Yeah.
Did you notice that the goat conveniently bit the rope that let the hand glider go, right? Okay. Right. But the hand glider itself looked very like holey and rickety and patched together, but then when it was flying, it was very clearly a real hand glider from the 1980s. Okay. Yeah. So I think it's one of those things. The camera tricks really didn't do any good there. It was pretty obviously a real hand glider and not this like burlap thing that they made you think was going to take off. So,
and one thing you learn by now all the Ewoks you're seeing, Wicket's father, I think you see his mom. These are very recognizably the same Ewoks and Ewok costumes you just saw in Return of the Jedi.
Yep.
But this is where you learn how important editing, lighting, and blocking and where you point the camera is. Because all of a sudden, these very convincing costumes that were in Return of the Jedi look like they just bought them off the rack at Spirit Halloween. I mean, the faces don't move. It's very obvious. You see where the feet connect and the gloves go to the sleeve. I mean, I think you can see the zippers in the back. I mean,
it's very. I mean, the sleeves were the worst to me. The whole movie. Yeah. I think that the sleeves were very obviously just sleeves and not fur, and that was the one thing that I noticed really, really, like right away when I saw them. And I think you bring up a really good point, Dan, and I heard you kind of bringing it up with, when Steven Spielberg had to try to make do with what was working in Jaws and what wasn't. Okay,
Yeah.
he had this big elaborate shark put together and it didn't work. Okay, he had to do other things. Right, he had to come up with camera angles. He had to come up with lighting. He had to come up with real life footage. He had to go to someone's swimming pool to reshoot something. He did all kinds of stuff to try to get things just exactly right. And this just kind of feels like front to back, the entire thing was shot in just a few days. It doesn't feel like it was shot over any length of time. It doesn't feel like they tried. It doesn't feel like they had any decent archival of footage for them to go back and splice together and make it look good. It just, and don't get me wrong, like I said, the budgetary constraints had to be ridiculous. With a TV show budget, they just weren't going to get what they needed to make it Star Wars worthy. That's just it.
But like, if you didn't know any better, you would say these are cheap, lazy costumes.
Yeah.
But they're the same ones from Return of the Jedi. It's just how you film it, how you light it, that stuff's important.
It's very important. Yeah.
So anyway, Wicked's brothers have climbed up a mountain and gotten stuck. How that happens, I don't know. I mean, how you make it halfway up and then decide, I don't know. And so that's why the dad's hang gliding. He sees some light off of the crashed ship.
And he throws him a rope, right?
Yeah.
Throws him a rope. And then he sees the ship.
They fall anyway.
Yeah, they fall anyway. Yeah.
So then the kids that the parents were frantically searching for are back in the ship. And Wicked's dad saw him when he was flying over. So now the kids are united with the Ewoks. And they're going to have a good time. The little girl's sick. They treat the little girl. You know that George did this.
Just a second. Speaking of bad actors, look, I generally don't ream into kids too much, okay? Because she was young. What was she? Maybe like 4 or 5, okay?
Yeah, maybe less. I don't know.
I get it, man. I got a 4-year-old, and trying to get him to do any kind of lines in a play or movie would just be not something that works. So I get it, okay? But she was no good, okay? If this was the best kid that you had, you shouldn't have wrote a kid in. It's that simple.
This is no Gertie. This is no Drew Barrymore.
Linda Blair, right? Linda Blair. There's all kinds of people that you could think of that were kids that just gave dynamic performances, right? That this was not it, okay?
When she had to cry.
Oh, man.
The tears. That was the worst, cheapest effect in the whole thing. I mean, Sweetums was better than her.
Yeah,
they were so obviously like painted on. They didn't even because they weren't liquid. They didn't
I know.
Did they put glue on that poor girl's face?
I think they did. Yeah.
It was so. Anyway, the one way you know that George was deeply involved is the ridiculous slapstick hijinks that the Ewoks keep getting into are exactly the same kind of stuff that Jar Jar was doing in episode 1.
Exactly.
Just falling down, dropping things on their foot.
And saving the day by just falling down. And, I mean, that's the kind of stuff that happens. But, yeah.
Hey, Jason is back.
My good buddy Jason, thanks for filling in last week, buddy. And be glad you didn't have to watch this atrocity, okay?
Yeah. He said, pull an orphan and get an older person pretty.
Yeah. Pretending to be a child. Yes. That's what they should have done. They should have got.
A yeah, that's what they should have done.
I mean, if Tobey Maguire can pretend to be in high school when he's darn near 35 years old, we all can admit that we could have just had a slightly older kid that could give a better performance.
Now, to the little girl's credit, her brother, who's about 15,
was still terrible. Yeah,
he's almost as bad as the mom. I think they inherited the bad acting.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that's just how this family is. They're just so unself-aware as a family. It's a genetic thing that they just have no real emotion.
They can't express themselves normally.
I know. Yeah. Did I lose you, Dan?
My internet dropped out. I think there might have been like a car accident or somebody's digging a hole in the middle of the night.
Well, I think George Lucas found out that we were talking about his masterpiece, and he decided to come after us.
Yeah,
he sent Sweetums. He sent Sweetums to knock out your internet, Dan. That's what happened.
Yeah.
So
I wonder.
Anyway,
Jason's still here.
Yeah.
Is it better than the Acolyte? Okay. Yes. Okay. Hopefully Jason is still here to get our answer.
So, and Barry brought this up earlier as well. The one thing I would say is, in execution, this is an absolutely atrocious movie. The set is terrible, the acting is terrible, the costumes are terrible, the script is terrible. Everything is very, very, very bad. However, I think when we're looking at what is better, I think a lot of people are going to look at it and say that the execution in The Acolyte might have been better, so therefore it's a better project. The reason I would disagree with that is because I think that they have torn down decades of history and turned the Jedi into an evil force and had Yoda be some cover-up mastermind for some atrocities that were... I just can't get behind that. I'm sorry. So no matter how well done anything was, and it wasn't very well done, that is just not going to be something I'm going to be able to get behind. So if I had to choose, I would choose this over The Acolyte.
Here's the thing. Everything now, this story is kind of bonkers. It's a little dull. It's pretty predictable. But all of the characters, even though the performances are awful, all of the characters make sense.
Yeah.
You know, the lines that they're saying, the emotions on their face don't match the lines that they're saying. But if you just pay attention to the lines, you know, they've crash landed on this moon. The parents are abducted by Sweetums. The children are taken in by the friendly teddy bears. The friendly teddy bears form a posse, you know, like a Fellowship of the Ring, to go to the mountain. You know, we didn't know it, but Ewoks are Jewish. They have a magic dreidel.
Yeah, they do.
Show you where your parents are.
It's absolutely.
Yep. It's like a magic dreidel / crystal ball. And the kids desperately want to save their parents. The parents are stoked to see their children. Nobody decides, screw my parents. I don't want to find them. The parents don't decide, screw my kids. Sweetums doesn't decide that he's a good guy and let the parents go. He falls down the ravine like Wile E. Coyote, right? Yes.
Yeah. And then he comes back. All right. Then he comes back. Somehow, after he fell all the way down, he came right back up like 12 seconds later. Okay. And then he fell down again. So, that's a final scare trope. All of these things, narratively, are not super exciting. No.
But they all make sense.
Yeah.
You're not like, oh, that would never happen. And why would they do that? Well, they did that because that's what would happen when your parents would get abducted and you're stranded on a moon somewhere and you don't know what's going on. I mean, it all holds together way better than The Acolyte.
Yeah.
And I will say, the forest locations are better than any of the exterior locations.
I can't go there. The sets were just so bad. I can't go there.
There were many scenes where they were very obviously actually in
I know what you're saying.
California redwoods.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah.
Where in The Acolyte, they very obviously never went outside.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
the scenes in The Acolyte where they're walking with all the potted plants, that are probably plastic, were worse than any of this. So that's and really, I don't know, is Amandla a better actress than the little girl or the mother?
You're killing me here. See, here's the thing. The thing is, The Acolyte had good actors. Okay.
Yeah.
They just completely wasted them all. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, Prince Tommen got like absolutely no run at all. Right. I mean, he was in the thing for, you know, maybe like 5-10 minutes total. All right. And then Carrie Ann Moss, they offed after the first 5 minutes. The guy from Squid Game was very good throughout the entire thing until that final episode where he was really bad. But Amandla, yes, she was bad the whole time. Yord was bad the whole time. I do feel like there were good actors in The Acolyte. So that's just something. But
There were some.
the story itself is just something I can't get behind.
Right.
That's all there is to it.
And what's the space gerbil's name? Well, what's his name?
I forget the little they them whatever his name. Yes. Yeah.
Definitely the Ewoks are better than a they them space gerbil.
That's right. The tracking space gerbil they them. Yeah.
Even though you could see the seams of their sleeves.
Yeah.
In their furry pant legs. That is still better than the bottoms of their feet. I think I saw a sewn seam on the bottom.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, there were. I mean, their costumes were above and beyond compared to the costumes of the monsters. All three monsters were just awful. I mean, awful. And we've talked about Sweetums, and that's because that's how he looks. He looks like a Muppet Sweetums, only with a different face. Okay,
right.
Everything else is exactly the same. I'm very curious if it was the first costume. Okay, if it was the costume with a different mask. And then we have the ROUS, Dan. The ROUS was in there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we had a rodent of unusual size that was chasing them through the woods. Okay.
Yep.
And what was very interesting about that was their one attempt at stop action on a green screen. On the green screen, which George did a lot in the trilogy. Okay.
Right.
And it worked out fine when he did it in the trilogy. Right. But it didn't work out in this time because you could tell they just didn't do the lighting right. It wasn't as fluid. This was no Tauntaun. No, not at all. This wasn't a Tauntaun. This wasn't the chess pieces. All the stuff that he did that on was a lot more fluid than this. It looked like a TV production.
When they lost it at the character design phase, it had big cartoon eyes.
Yeah.
It's a big rodent that doesn't have fur for reasons I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think anyone really.
Were there any lesbian using the Force to make babies?
No, none at all. There was no Force. There was no Force that was mentioned that I recall. There was like some mystic witch. There was some mystic witch Ewok, right? But but that was the only. But he was not a lesbian so far as I am aware, and he did not use the Force to make babies. So,
right.
Yeah.
No, there were no babies. Just the one nuclear family stranded with cute teddy bears.
Yeah, that's right.
And Sweetums rodent of a usual size.
And some really terrible spiders that we're going to get into as well in a minute. But
there wasn't. And then Jason is here.
I hope they weren't
Skywalkers.
I hope they weren't Skywalkers.
Now, by the end, they may have identified as Skywalkers. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's right. But I did not see that.
They did not identify as such within the runtime of Caravan of Courage.
That's right. 40th anniversary of Caravan of Courage. Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks for chiming in. It is the 40th anniversary today.
I can't believe I didn't
not
do that
today, this month. Yeah.
That's what we should have tagged this as, the 40th.
Oh, yeah. I knew it. I knew it when we were watching. I thought that's why you suggested it, to be completely honest. I thought that.
No, me and Jason started talking about this in our 2-hour Disney marathon. But just because it is the 40th, I think next week we need to watch the sequel, Battle for Endor, Tim.
Oh, man. If you're going to make me watch 3 hours of this nonsense, I am going to drive down to where you live and hunt you down, Dan. So, all right.
Oh,
so, let's get into the spiders.
Anniversary. That's crazy.
Let's get into the spiders, Dan. Okay, let's get into the spiders because it needs its own segment. Okay.
Yeah. This is the ring spider.
Hold on. I mean, people. There were so many bad special effects in this movie. I cannot even begin to comprehend. If I started listing them, my head would explode. But if I had to pick one special effect where it was just like, what were they thinking when they decided that this was the route to go? They literally picked a spider that looks like something you would get from the Halloween section at Big Lots, okay? And they probably had a couple of strings on some of the legs to make it move. It was absolutely awful. I can't believe. I mean, if George saw this, I don't know if he saw it before it was really, but if he saw it, I would have just said no because of the spiders. I would have said no. You cut the spider scene, or we're not doing this. Because it wasn't just the spiders; it was the spider web that was very obviously just like rope that had some plastic over it, and I can't believe that is something that he looked at and was just like, "Yep, that's Star Wars. People will buy it. Let's do it." I can't believe it. It was just ridiculous. Like spiders have been done in Star Wars, and they've been done well. They were done really well in The Mandalorian in an episode. I don't know if you remember. Spiders can be really scary, but this was not.
I mean, was it which Lord of the Rings film is it?
Shelob is the beginning of Return of the King, I believe, right?
Yeah, I just watched
and in the first Hobbit movie, obviously they did that as well, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
And they even Rings of Power. They did a spider scene in Rings of Power. I mean, everything, if you do it well with lighting, and if you do it with, there's so many things they could have done, but everything was off. All right, the lighting was off for that. The set did not look right. The spider itself looked terrible. They did not work with what they had. Whoever directed this was just not good.
Pretty sure I gotta look it up again. The dude that directed it had just left ILM. He was the head of ILM. It like he's got this spider.
I think ILM was probably happy to let him go. I think
there's two spiders. They get on their little web bridge, and the first spider is honestly, it's like cut out of cardboard or something.
It is. It's attacking one of the Ewoks, and then after the Ewok stabs it at the very end, you could just tell he just flops it over like it's.
Yeah, so that the first spider is there and gone in no time, and you barely see it. And then they have a second, better spider. This is the hero, but they get a close up right on the face, and it's so bad.
And the mystic Ewok hypnotizes the spider. That effect was also terrible. I mean, I just didn't know, man. I'm not a guy that thinks that these kind of movies have to be perfect. I'm not. We're talking 40 years ago, and we're talking on ABC, made for TV.
Yeah.
But Star Wars has a certain level of expectation that I can't believe that this was greenlit. I love
that it was ABC. I love that it was ABC. Because
absolutely.
Disney subsidiaries. Now, Disney, I don't think owned ABC in the 80s, but
they did not. They didn't own until the 2000s. But till the 90s. It was like 96. It was like 96 when they bought it. But the thing that's really interesting is that this was on ABC, but it was, I believe that CBS still owned the distribution rights to Star Wars at the time. So I was surprised this was on ABC.
Well, it's not, Lucasfilm shopped it as a half-hour special. And nobody wanted a half hour, but ABC counter would be like, that sounds like crap for 30 minutes. But if you do 2 hours, stretch it to 2 hours, and we'll get Sweetums for you. We'll call up Jim Henson. It'll be beautiful.
And he'll throw in a couple of spiders that were in the background somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Just, oh, man.
Oh, you're selling, Jason, this is, Acolyte is not so bad that it's good. It's just really bad.
Yeah.
This is so bad it's good.
Yeah, that's right. This is the kind of thing that you could see, like, you could see Mystery Science Theater 3000 watching it and just having a blast. You know what I mean? Like, that's the kind of movie that we're talking about here. We're talking about something like Plan 9 from Outer Space or something like that, where it's so bad that you enjoy watching it just to talk about how bad it is. That's what this is.
And young kids can enjoy it because there's Ewoks and they're making little Ewok noises. They say yub nub and jump around and drop things on their feet. So, I mean, there's at least that. I mean, you don't have to worry about any sexy scenes where, the heroine stares at the bad guy's junk. So you can have your small kids watch Ewoks play, and it's so bad it's good for you.
Yeah.
So,
and it's so fake that they probably won't be scared.
Yeah.
So
one thing that I was noticing, you mentioned the goat.
Mm-hmm.
in all of Star Wars, anywhere other than this, the only Earth creature that you have ever seen,
And there was a ferret as well.
yeah, was a
There was
human.
a ferret and a goat.
Other than this, you've never
Yeah.
seen anything. You've never seen it. You've never heard it mentioned. Not so much as a dog.
Yeah, there was an alpaca in this, and there was a ferret. And
there was.
I thought the same thing,
rabbit?
Dan. There was
a rabbit.
there was a rabbit. Yeah,
There's chickens.
yeah,
They ride horses,
yeah.
and they call them horses. They don't
Yeah.
have a alien name for horses. They just have horses on the Forest Moon of Endor, and
There
they
you go.
call them horses. And man, that Ewok gets big when he has to have a horse chase. Did you see
Yeah.
him jump
Oh
up?
yeah. Yeah.
All of a sudden, he grew. He's like a Christian's heart. He grew 6 sizes that day.
And the same thing when he was hand gliding. It was like, I think he looks a little taller than he did when he took off.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Jason is watching it tomorrow to get the whole family together. Jason, pop some popcorn.
We just added 30% to Disney Plus's viewing of this for this month. Okay, right now.
Be ready to mock it mercilessly, and you're going to have a great time. You are going to have a great time. It is so bad that it is so good.
It's terrible.
And the thing about, they're in I do think that the Ewok's little hut was not a bad set. The worst set was the interior of the crashed ship.
Yeah,
I think that was like the interior of a shuttle from Star Trek the original series.
It didn't look even like a ship, and that's the thing. Like, the girl was hiding in like a cabinet. It looked like an old hospital or something. It didn't even look like the inside of a ship. And that was my main complaint with it. Was like, if this is a ship, where's the ship stuff?
Yeah, they walked around in the back lot, and they were like, "Here's a set."
Yeah,
cabinets.
Yeah. Yeah, she needs to be hiding because her parents couldn't find her. Oh, here's cabinets. She can be in a cabinet. Yeah. Well, okay, but what use does a cabinet have in a Star Cruiser? I'm curious.
Yeah,
but
I don't. So the Ewok hut wasn't quite. That was actually a lot better. But to make it look rustic, that's where they had all these animals. They're in the Ewok, and then you just look over in the corner, and there's this giant rabbit.
Yeah.
Why is it there? I don't know. Does it move? No. Then she's talking to Wicket, and there's a ferret on the table that they're playing with.
Yeah.
Why do they have a ferret?
No one knows. Maybe it was food. I don't know.
Yeah. And just so you know that they're kind of country, there's live chickens in the hut,
Yeah.
And then you have to go somewhere. You don't have money to make science fiction pack animals, so you just have actual horses.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's how it goes, man. So okay, so we got to get to this one, Dan. This is, I know that we kind of have made it all the way through for the most part, but when the Ewok dies at the end, okay.
Ride the horse.
I'm sorry.
Spoilers, everybody.
I absolutely lost it because, first of all, you have that kid who he is just an atrocious actor, all right, pleading with the Ewok not to die, and then the Ewok, as you've mentioned, has these costume limitations where they can't really act very well in the costumes, and the Ewok's just kind of like, and it just kind of is implied that the Ewok dies at that point. It was one of the worst scenes in the entire thing. It was supposed to be like this emotionally heart-pulling string. Just here, we're gonna get you right in the heart right here. It turned out to be one of the funniest scenes to me in the entire thing.
His eyes are wide open. It's just vaguely, he stops moving a little bit.
The costume just made it impossible to make that scene work.
Yeah.
And the director did no favors with the kid and with the camera angles and all that. It was just terrible. That was supposed to be like the apex of the movie. And it just it didn't land that way. It was really
somebody should have told George what he told Harrison Ford when he wanted to kill Han Solo.
Yeah.
It's not that kind of story, George.
It's not.
I'll make it and everybody's happy. That's the kind of story we're telling. God, the dying Ewok. And dude, I was surprised on Disney Plus. If you watch Peter Pan or something, you get a disclaimer.
Yeah,
That the movie is culturally insensitive.
Culturally insensitive, and all that.
Yeah. They should put that at the top of this movie. They just should, because the Ewoks are even more heavily hinted at to be kind of a stand-in for Native Americans.
Mm-hmm.
Because they have a ceremony and they hand out feathers before they take off as talismans to take with them. Some get the red feathers, some get the blue feathers. And it's all very tribal. And I
don't think it's laid on near as thick as Peter Pan, though. I mean, I don't think it's laid on near as thick as Peter Pan. And so
here's the thing. Now, these obviously Ewoks don't speak like the humans, but they obviously have a language. They're obviously speaking to each other. They've built homes. They have hang gliders. They have spears. And for a large part of the movie, the little girl likes the Ewoks, and the boy keeps insisting that they're animals.
Yeah.
They make and use tools. They have written language.
They're savages. Yeah.
They have medicine. They have medicine. They treat the sick little girl, and yet he keeps saying, they're just animals. And it's like, dude.
Yeah.
Disclaimer.
Yeah.
Child from Advanced Society accuses indigenous peoples of being animals. Oh.
Yeah, man. I mean, I don't know. Wrapping it all up, I think that it was just. We've explained exactly what it is. We've explained all of the things that are hilarious. We've explained all of the things that you're going to watch it. You're going to be like, oh, that's what they meant. But I think ultimately we're on the same page with this one, Dan, whereas it is one of those movies that like you could just sit back and turn it on and just have a good laugh about what a crock this whole thing is. That is the kind of movie that this is. This isn't the kind of movie that you're going to watch and see anything Oscar-worthy. There is nothing Oscar-worthy in this. I mean, there is nothing even close to being considered good in this movie. But you can just sit back and just make fun of the movie and have your own little inside jokes about the lines and the things that happen and the way that guys act, and it really is somewhat entertaining just to do that. So
it's wonderful for that. And it is so bad. Some things are not so bad that they're good. They're just bad.
Yeah.
It's just so bad it's good. Oh, I wanted to mention it. Everybody gets a talisman because it is the Lord of the Rings, and they do form a fellowship before they go out, and everybody gets a thing. And our surly 15-year-old gets a rock. And it's Halloween. Halloween just ended. And all I could think of was Charlie Brown.
That's right.
I got a rock.
This is Charlie Brown, I got a rock. That's exactly, I didn't even think about it until you said that, but that's exactly what it was. He got a rock, and he had no idea why, and everybody else got other stuff. They got like a tooth, or they got...
I'm going to make T-shirts with this kid and Charlie Brown, and Charlie Brown's going to be like, I got a rock.
I got a rock.
Just going to say, I got a rock. They're going to be talking to each other.
Man, I just there was so much about this that we could go on for a while about it, but I do think if Mystery Science Theater did not do this, they need to think about it, because this is honestly one of those that you could just hear some of the stuff that they would say as they're watching it, and it would just be golden. But
I strongly advise anybody out there listening, just go watch it. You won't like it, but you'll like not liking it. You'll have fun not liking it. You will laugh about it. Watch it with friends. Watch it with friends.
Don't watch it with anybody. I mean, if you're gonna watch this is going to be one of those movies that you're going to have your own little inside jokes about it. That's the kind of movie that we're talking about, right? Yeah. And I just can't think. I can't think of the last time I watched a movie like that, because I don't watch movies like that for entertainment. Okay, I watch movies like that when I have nothing else to do, or when Dan says, "Hey, we're going to do a podcast on this tomorrow night." So those are the only times that I usually watch movies like this. So, Jonathan made me do it too. He made me watch the Nick Fury movie, which was almost as bad as this one. Not quite.
Don't hassle the Hoff. Don't hassle the Hoff.
Have you seen that movie, Dan? Have you seen that movie?
I have not.
We're not going to get into that, but that's another made-for-TV special that is just atrocious. So these things are just so bad, you know what I mean? But you can find enjoyment in the fact that they're bad, and that's okay. It's better than actually watching a universe get destroyed before your eyes.
Yeah. So, did we have any? I think we covered the Caravan of Courage.
Yeah, I think that's about all we could talk about for Caravan of Courage. There's just not much else to tell. Thanks for all of you that checked in. Jason, Jeremy, Barry, all you guys, thanks for checking in, and we appreciate it. If you haven't, go ahead and subscribe to Nerd Champs. That way you can see all of our amazing content, reviews, and videos, and we love having you guys here.